has started, right? So, mainly if you missed this live stream, there will be more in the future. Basically, what is going to be happening here, if there are, let's say, there are certain questions from my Instagram, offline, or from other people, right? As well as some examples from my current students. I will go through them in each of my live streams. So, of course, it'll be great if you can come here live in order to participate. But if you're not, you can always send me a question in advance, and I'll do my best to address them in future live streams. Okay, and with that, let's start. Okay, so for today's topic, I want to focus on small talk actually. So if you have taken a look at my latest short videos, what I have focused on in terms of the theme is actually small talk with clients and customers. Okay, so I have two questions over here. First one, how do I do small talk with clients slash customers? And the second one is, how do I do small talk with colleagues? Oh, sorry, I just realized that my slides don't actually change accordingly. Okay, that's a bit annoying. Let me just restart. Okay, I have it there. Okay, so as I was saying, I want to talk about small talk today. So, first things first, I think a very common issue that people often have when it comes to small talk is either there's a lot of silence, or if there is no silence and there's actually like either potential for conversation or there is actual conversation, the topics actually become a bit hard to manage, right? And also, this is in addition to the purpose of the actual small talk. Like, what are you doing when you are talking to your client or customer? Like, is this meant to be some sort of icebreaker? Like, this is your first time, let's say, talking to this client, or is it a kind of so-called a catch-up, right? This is a regular client or customer that you have been working with for quite a while. Maybe you haven't seen them lately, and this is the first time that you have encountered them again. And how do I navigate this in a natural way? Okay. A third purpose could be, let's say, you are in a position where you are potentially trying to pitch something. So before you can actually pitch, this is very similar to the icebreaker, but the pitch is a bit higher stakes. So you don't know if you're going to be able to work with this client, but you want to build some rapport in order for the client to have a good impression of you, and basically want to at least talk to you about the work stuff, right? But before you can actually head over to the serious work stuff, you will have to acknowledge, that that you are talking to a human being, first of all. And secondly, that while you are talking, you need to be aware of some professional boundaries, maintain some sort of politeness, be polite but not too distant. I would say that's the main role of small talk. Okay. Okay. So the next thing that I will be talking a bit more about, okay, would be certain topics that you can actually get away with. Okay, so these are some of the topics that likely are safe. They are easy to adapt to, and also you can always find like certain scripts that you can use in order to talk about them. So the first one is weather. So weather is one of those small talk topics that I think there is some advice out there where which says that, oh, don't talk about the weather because it's boring. However, the weather for cultures where, let's say, it's just not even such a usual thing to do small talk, but you still need to build that rapport. Weather is a good way to segue to lead someone into the conversation in a non-threatening way. Like, I don't need to reveal anything about myself in order to talk about the weather. So, depending on the climate that you are experiencing right now, for some people it can be spring, it could be a perpetual summer, right? So, what do you like or dislike about the weather? So, your likes and dislikes. So, for example, what I can say is, well, I like I like it when the weather is warm. I'm someone who is easily cold. What about you? And then to that, you may respond, oh, I'm someone who prefers cold weathers because I sweat easily and I don't like that feeling of humidity. So I've already given you two scripts, one for cold weather, one for hot weather. And of course, there's a third one, which is nice weather. So, hot, cold, nice, right? These are all simple adjectives that you can use to describe the weather. So, for example, I can say, oh, it's such a nice day to go outside. So, what I mean is, it's a nice day to go outside, right? So basically, what I mean is, it's neither too hot nor too cold or even too windy, right? I want to go outside and enjoy this nice weather. So even something simple like that can break the ice, can help me look like someone who is able to make some small conversation. The next thing I want to talk about is actually work. So for, oops, sorry. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about is work, which is in my opinion, I feel like talking about work can be very easy for some people, and for other people, they are very private about it. So you actually need to figure out, is this person someone who treats work as something private, right? They don't really want to talk about it, or they want to rant. They want to talk about work. Maybe they, especially if you already have some sort of connection with this client or customer, maybe um, they want to air their grievances. They want to complain. Otherwise, they, maybe they are somewhat curious about the work that you do, and also willing to share about their own experiences. So you need to think of these three types of clients, whether they're private, whether they are people who tend to rent, or people who are just curious about your day to day. And based on these three types of clients, you can actually narrow down what you might want to say at work. So if you figure out someone is a private person, you'll pretty much know it immediately, because what they might say could be, I work is work. So I actually filmed a short video on this, right? Someone asked, "Hey, how are you? How's work?" And the client or customer responds with, "Work is work," which basically means that I don't really want to share, but I find it impolite to tell you that directly, so I just give a non-answer. So this is what we call a non-answer at work. The second thing is, let's say the okay. So let's say we want to talk about someone who wants to rant or complain about work. How would you know if that person is like that? They may say something like, "I had such a horrible or bad day at work." So when someone gives either a strong adjective, or they are, sorry, give me a second. Alright, so whenever someone gives like a strong adjective such as like horrible, so it's very emotional in a way. It kind of it hints to me that this person wants to tell me more, or wants to share more about their emotions regarding work, or they are facing something difficult and they trust me to listen to a bit of it. So this is your hint in terms of emotions, adjectives that show emotion. Okay. Third one is our curious kind of client or customer. So it can go both ways, right? You could be the client or customer, and the other, the person that you are seeking like certain services from, like a hairdresser, or like or just maybe your maintenance staff, right? So all of these people, as long as it's people facing, like, nurse, doctor, healthcare, teacher, all of those, they may be curious in a way. So how do you interact with someone who expresses that curiosity? How does it look like? So we will have a curious customer or client saying, "I what kind of work, or rather, what's your work like?" Right? So they are not exactly asking you to list out your entire job scope, but it is possible that this person just wants to know, okay, what is your day to day like? What kind of, like, especially if I'm not familiar with your industry, right? Just because I go to the doctor to check whether I have an illness or not, or cure my illness, or check my symptoms for something, doesn't mean that I know what a day in the life of being a doctor is like. And some clients and customers are curious about that, or they want to do small talk that is maybe not just like about something like the weather, or what do you here we have like weekend plans, hobbies, interests, food. Like, I want to know a little bit about your work if you don't mind sharing. Okay, so this is what you may encounter. All right, I'm going to take a small pause here just to see, right? Mhm. Okay, the next thing I am going to talk about is hobbies and interests. Okay, so let me just go to another slide, right? And then let's talk about hobbies. Okay, so depending on the age group, the culture, you will probably have some existing stereotypes, or existing assumptions that you have about this type of person. So how a person looks, how a person acts, right? Just even before they speak, you will have a certain impression, and maybe you want to guess like what kind of hobby or interest they have. So if this person looks like someone who maybe has some sort of interest outside of work, right? You can actually, instead of asking about work, you can actually ask about their interests. So, how do I go about it, and what do I do if the person doesn't have many hobbies or interests, or isn't so open to sharing? So, I'll talk about the first kind. Okay, so when it comes to hobbies and interests, right, what you can do is just ask a general question, right? What do you like to do for fun? Okay, so I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about a few groups of people actually. The people who say they enjoy sleeping, right? And they seem to not they seem to not want to engage in a discussion about hobbies. That's fine, we have other backups. But this is probably your clue. People who say, I like sleeping, like I like to sleep. So you don't, it's difficult to come up with a follow up question from that, and also maybe not so meaningful for the person. Like, this is probably a person who is either too tired to have hobbies outside of work, or isn't willing to share. And with that, you want to try other topics rather than harp on the fact that, oh, is that the only thing you like doing, like sleeping? Is something wrong, right? If you don't want to dig into the deeper issue of like why someone loves sleeping all the time, let's take it at face value and just say, oh, okay, me too, right? Or how many hours of sleep do you get per day, right? Something simple like that. If you are faced with the if you're faced with a response like, I enjoy sleeping as a hobby or interest. Okay, I'm gonna pause for a little bit just to see. Okay, let's carry on. I realized that my slides were once again not capturing. Oh, was it not capturing? Okay, that's a bit annoying. Alright, I will try to see if I can talk about the work part again. So if you rewatch this live stream, it doesn't seem so confusing. Okay, so I was on the topic of hobbies and interests, right? What do you like to do for fun? People who say they like to sleep, you can always talk about sleep hours. People love tracking sleep hours, or they love tracking health. Okay, whether you personally feel strongly about tracking devices in general matters less than your ability to engage with that in a friendly kind of like non-judgmental way. So you can always talk about how sleep hours. How long do you sleep per night, right? Do you enjoy like do you enjoy tracking your hours even? Okay, next one, right? Let's say they are someone with a lot of hobbies. For that one, you can always ask them to elaborate on their favorite hobby. Okay, so for this one, right, you can always ask, which hobby or interest is your favorite? Okay, this will definitely prompt a bit more elaboration if you have a bit more time to spare. And of course, most people aren't, they probably wouldn't overshare, right, in terms of what they enjoy doing, but this is a good chance to show that you are curious about them, right? Okay, so the third one I want to talk about is somewhere in between, right? So we have sleep, we have people who have their favorites because they just have so many hobbies, right? And there are the people who are private about it. So they may say something like, I don't know, right? And they may even ask the question back to you, what about you? Okay, so this is your chance, right, to still build rapport based on this topic. So ideally, you should have a certain, well, you don't have to lie, or rather, this is not really a test of your skills in lying. Instead, what you can actually say is like, oh, I don't know, or rather, in response to, I don't know, what about you? What you can actually say is share a little bit about yourself. You don't need to say more than a few sentences. You can just state what you're interested in. Ask back if it is something that they are also interested in. So you can actually say like, oh, I enjoy, well, running is a popular sport these days. I am personally not into running, but I know many run clubs exist, and it is a very cost efficient way to exercise and also meet new people. So it's a very social activity, and it's also a healthy activity, right? And you can actually say quite a bit there. And I don't even like running, and somehow I know more than I probably should. And this is simply from exposure to either social media or, just having experienced a very simple kind of hobby. So it doesn't have to be anything unique, right? It doesn't have to be anything unique. So this is a thing I want to emphasize. Your hobby doesn't need to be unique. So if you're wondering, are there people who like, oops, sorry. If you're wondering, are there people who actually are concerned about whether they are seen as boring because they either don't have a unique hobby or they don't have any hobbies? Yes. So you should actually take note of the people who may feel a bit self-conscious about that. Don't make people feel like not having a hobby it means that they are a boring person, but also don't make it sound like you are the most interesting person in the world just because you have a hobby. All right? Okay, and with that, I actually want to talk about the work part once again, right? Just a recap so that if you missed the previous part because it wasn't shown in the slides, you can actually see it here. Okay, so give me a second. All right, so you should see it over here. Private people will give a non-answer. Work is work. I have a video on that already, and it kind of shows you, okay, I don't want to share about work. Either I hate it, or it's none of your business, and I don't want you to ask me about it. The second one are people. The second one refers to people who are ranters, people who want to complain, people who feel some sort of connection with you and trust you to tell you that, oh, I had a horrible day at work. Okay, adjectives that show emotion. The last one are the curious cats, the people who are a bit curious about you. They are willing to share a little bit if you are willing to share as well. So kind of like networking, like an exchange of information. All right, and now let's take a short few seconds, and then we will talk about the next part, which is after hobbies and interests. We will talk about weekend plans. Okay. Okay, just so you all know, that the Q&A function is actually on the live stream, so I have finally figured out how to toggle it, so feel free to ask a question here if you want. Okay, otherwise I will continue on with the topic on small talk, right? No question is a silly question, so feel free to ask it. All right. So the fourth one is actually on weekend plans. So this is kind of related to hobbies and interests. It's just that weekend plans is more specific in this way. So by weekend plans, the very simple script is what are your plans for the weekend? So this is especially useful when we are close to the weekend. But honestly, any day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right, are good days to ask because the weekend is just not that far away for. I mean, mentally it could feel far away, but it's not literally far away for most days of the week. Um, and you will have different types of responses, or you can follow up with different types of questions when it comes to plans for the weekend. The first one are the type of people who do have a plan. So they could be spending time with family or with friends. So these are people who maybe tend to be more social, or they have a rather predictable kind of social plan, right, during the weekend. And then, of course, we have the private people, right, or the people I call easily suspicious, right? They don't want you to know about their weekend plans. Perhaps it's either because they are private, or it is because they have nothing planned and they don't want to tell you that they have nothing planned, because the expectation of asking what are your plans kind of assumes you have a plan. But there is no like simpler way to ask it. To ask a question like what are your plans for the weekend, right, implies that, I'm expecting the other person to have a plan. So these people might say, oh, I haven't decided what to do yet. And of course, we have the sleeping crowd, okay? We have the resting crowd, actually. I'm going to be resting, right? Sleeping, okay? This doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to talk. It's just that they're truthful. Okay, work is tiring, and working like a full-time job for most of the week, right? Where you only have that amount of time in the weekdays to spare. Weekends can feel like a reprieve, can feel like a good day, 2 good days to rest. So, the approach of the family and friends, if they say I'm going to be hanging out with family and friends, that's quite straightforward. You can always just ask them like, what do you do? What do you do with? What activities do you do actually? What activities do you do? So this is like asking a follow-up question. For those who haven't decided what to do yet, what you can actually say is mention or offer your weekend plans, right? So my weekend plans are that I'm going shopping, right? I'm going shopping this weekend for new clothes. So something like that, right? Offer your own perspective first. It doesn't have to be long, similar to hobbies and interests. It's not your time to shine, okay? It's just more of to ease the people in to the conversation. And then finally, people who are resting, right? Sometimes people have a certain, this is like a certain impression that if you're not productive or if you're not moving like 24/7, there's some embarrassment around the tone. So you have to watch out for the tone. Is this person like feeling a bit embarrassed that they're just sleeping during the weekend? You can actually affirm this decision. You can actually say, oh, it's great that you are resting, right? So something like, it's great. It's a good time to rest, right? Weekends are best time to rest, or rather the only time to rest. Okay, so even that you can have some sort of back and forth. I'm going to be resting or sleeping. Oh, that's good, right? I'm happy for you that you get time to rest. Something simple, just like that. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this here for a while, and then afterwards I'm gonna move on to the topic of food. Sorry about that. I'm trying to fix the slides that I have here. Right. Ah, hello, Andrew. How can I approach someone? Okay, nice. Right. Thanks for the question, actually. When you mean approach someone, you mean I'm gonna assume this is like a business context, right? So actually, let's try and address that. So I'll talk about food a bit later, and I'll jump back to it in a bit. Okay, so whenever there's questions, I will basically just address that first, and then afterwards, right, I will jump back to what I have originally prepared. Okay, all right. So let's actually talk about approaching someone. Okay. So how how can I approach someone? Okay. So when it comes to give me a second. All right. So when it comes to approaching someone, let's actually put the category of colleagues as well too. Okay. So it can be potential clients, it can be potential customers, it can be potential colleagues. So the first thing you would want to address is actually the level of politeness, right? Um, when it comes to politeness, the first impression always counts the most. So whenever we are asking, let's say, for favors, right, or we are asking for permission, we may be asking for advice as well, or feedback. Okay, so favors is like I want someone to do something. So that can be a direct way would be can you do this for me? Okay, can you do this for me? It is a question. It's not impolite, but it's quite direct because of the use of can. How we often soften that is, let's say, I can ask, would it be possible Or would you be able to do this for me? And then I may add a certain timeline or deadline, right? That I hope you can do it by. Okay, so from here, let's say, would it be possible for you to do this for me by Friday? If it is a really tight deadline, you can even add I'm sorry, would it be possible, right? So that is how you can soften it. So this is a softer approach. Softer doesn't mean not confident or assertive. Softer just means that the person who is receiving this question feels better about it, because of course, if you're approached nicely, you will want to also respond in a nice kind of way. Okay, so this was the screen that I am referring to. Give me a second. Wondering why it is not showing. Yep, alright, I got it here. Right, sorry everyone, this was a little bit messier than I thought. Okay, we have it here. Very nice. Okay, indirect questions. Thanks, Andrew. Let me see. Yep, so when it comes to so there is the direct question and indirect question. Typically we try not to be too indirect. Like if we actually do want someone to do something for us, we should still, ask it, right? Otherwise, it may eventually backfire, because it could be seen as indirectness can sometimes be seen as manipulation. So you would want to be a bit careful of how indirect you are being. The second one I was talking about in terms of permission. So permission could be like could, right? The direct form would be, let's say, I'll let's see, I'll go ahead with this project. Okay. So I am kind of seeking permission, but I'm also just saying, okay, I will just do it. Okay. Whereas the second option, right, would be asking it as a question. Could I go ahead with this project? So could, okay, really useful. I've talked about this before. Could, would, these are verbs. We call them modal verbs, okay, that help you approach a question in a way that doesn't feel too rude in this case. All right. Okay, I found a way to do the slides properly. Thanks everyone for your patience as I navigate this. Yep. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Right. And if I had to go with the last one, which is really like the advice or feedback, it is sometimes people feel like if you ask for advice or feedback, in a like I deserve it, like an entitled way, they may be less inclined. They may not want to actually give you the advice. So if they ask you in a way that it's similar to a favor, but in terms of, oh, I actually respect your opinion, and therefore I want you to help me out with this. So instead of saying like, should I do this, right? So this is like the focus is on me, how I can benefit from it. However, if you actually put it as, let's say, what do you think about this? Like, let's say this decision, for example. The focus is on the other person's expertise. So it's like the other person, oh, okay, now I feel like I can give some sort of advice or feedback. It doesn't feel like too much, and also it doesn't feel like, oh, maybe I don't really care what you would do, but since you're giving me a hypothetical question, I would actually, I would want to respond to that. Okay, so that's all for this question, right? I will see if there are others. Let me just check. Okay, otherwise, right, I will go back to the part on small talk actually. So for small talk, let's go back to this part. Okay, I was over here. Weekend plans and food. Okay, so on the topic of food, I think like most cultures are happy to talk about food. Not every person is happy to talk about food, especially, if they, like, let's say, they may not have the best, best relationship with food. Okay, once again, I realized I need to capture the screen. Okay, yep, here it is. Okay, so some people may not have the best relationship with food, but you can pretty much figure it out from the beginning. Right? So from the beginning, you would probably say, like, let's say, talk about a certain meal that you would be having eventually. So at work, it would be like, what will you be having for lunch, right? So something about lunch. Of course, if you work late into the night, dinner can be an option, but for most people, it will be lunch. Okay, so for some people, they may say, I've brought my own lunch or food. Okay, these are people you can actually ask about the food they brought. So it's like, if it's in a lunchbox, who prepared it, right? Who prepared it? What is it? Okay, these are very simple questions that you may be curious to ask. Second one would be people who haven't decided what they want to eat, right? Or they may say like, I don't know yet. Okay, so lunch hour is approaching. You want to get lunch. This person wants to get lunch, right? Or like eventually your client or customer will be getting lunch. You can actually offer recommendations, especially if you are near some sort of food place, or this person, doesn't really have anything to say. You can offer your recommendations. You can say what you like to eat for lunch. Okay. And the last one will be people who have a clear answer. I will probably have, and then they mention the food. Okay, so then you can comment on whether you had it before, like what you like about it. So I would recommend not saying what you don't like about the food, because it's like saying, oh, I really like to eat noodles. And then the other person says, oh, I hate noodles. Like, who asked you? You know? So in this case, always try to keep the conversation like on a more positive note and a more affirming note, so that the person feels like, oh, this person is personable, friendly, and still professional about like simple life things. Okay, right. So I actually have another. There's another question in the chat that says, um, okay, let me actually put it somewhere in a new page. Actually, since we are on the topic of how do I? Okay, let me just write it. Okay, I'm gonna leave the question here. How do I become a certified business English teacher? So first of all, the word certified, right? Basically would mean that is there some sort of, do I need proof of certification? So I think there are two ways around it. The first one is actually your work experience can be a form of proof. The other one can be an official certification, like a teaching certification, such as CELTA, right? CELTA is short for the Cambridge English teaching qualification for English as a second or foreign language. Okay, so it is administered by Cambridge. I believe most countries have it. I also took this certification because I thought, oh, okay, um, mm, it's both for the learning experience and also like the legitimacy of your profession, right? So I would say it depends on the route you want to go, but you can take an official qualification. There is no official business English qualification that you can pay for and get certified for. Most people are just looking at the industry that you specialize in. So, like work experience, what is your specialization in terms of, let's say, you want to work in tech, or you have worked in tech or finance, right? Or admin, right? All of these places can be a specialization, right? So it's not really about certification in this case, if we're talking about business English. Okay, and on that note as well, right? If you're curious about what business English is even about, right? When it comes to like the different aspects. So like even though there is no like official certification catered to business English, it is still related to some pretty predictable structures. So these structures would include like, let's say, okay, give me a second. I just realized my, whew, why is it not loading? I don't know why, like, my screen is not loading today. Okay, so as I was saying, work experience CELTA, but another thing that I wanted to talk about is actually here. Because I think getting both the clients as well as I guess people who are teaching to understand like the position that you're in when you're teaching business English. So sometimes it can be about interviews, it can be about small talk, which is what I talked about today. It can be about meetings, it can be about presentations, reports, networking. So all of these, right, still fall under business English and many more actually. This is not like the full extent. So more than just a certification, you actually want to know like what you want to specialize in actually. Like do you want to be someone who is very confident in the formal parts of business? So the more formal parts would actually be like meetings, presentations, reports, uh, these three things, right? I'm not going to talk about interviews first, but meetings, presentations, reports all have a very clear structure, organization of information, right? And they are in both written as well as spoken formats. So the ones that actually people have more difficulty in is actually interviews, small talk, and networking, especially if English is not your first language. Yep. So what I mean by that is because it's spontaneous conversation or that you have to come up with ideas spontaneously. It's like if I asked you to do like a live stream like now, right? Of course, there's some preparation involved. So let's say, I have my slides ready, I have my points ready, but at the end of the day, you are talking to a person. You can't really rely on you can't really rely purely on slides or notes. In fact, it would seem a bit unprofessional to refer to like your notes or something like that. And that is why actually the interviews, small talk, and networking kind of scenarios actually it's all about practice. So that's why like students want a teacher or at least someone that they can bounce off ideas with, because in an actual situation you won't be able to refer to anything. You probably can't actually like even use like a like chat gpt, for example. You can't use ai to immediately generate something, look at it, and then afterwards talk to the person, because it will feel unnatural, right? And also it will show that you are not capable of talking on the spot. You're not able to come up with ideas on the spot, and also it reveals the fact that maybe you are not as fluent as maybe your written work may seem. So with written work, of course, you can always rely on the dictionary, on translation, etc. But speaking is where it truly, the first few impressions, or rather the first 10 minutes of impression in an interview, small talk, even the first few seconds for networking, right? Similarly short. That impression is where fluency counts the most. Okay. Of course, whatever that I have mentioned in small talk includes both fluency as well as topics. So certain scripts you can rely on, like certain questions you want to ask, certain things you want to say. But what if like it goes out of topic, or I wasn't expecting this person to ask me that? Then actually it's all about that adaptability and building that in order to be able to overcome these kinds of spontaneous speaking scenarios. Hmm. Oh, interesting. Right. Yeah, so on the topic of negotiation, hmm, let me just give me a second. So this will this will likely be the last question I'm addressing. If there are any more, please type them down in the last like minute or so, right? And I will do my best to address them. Okay, So let's actually talk about negotiating, which is not here. I would say you would encounter it more during a meeting. Okay, so let me just create a slide on negotiation. All right. Give me a second. Yep. So like key areas of negotiation, I think let's split them into confidence, right? How confident you seem, fluency, right? As well as counter arguments. Okay, so I will explain a bit on what each of them mean, right? The first one has a lot to do with how you hold yourself. So it can be like, I know this feels like this is not very friendly to people who naturally feel a bit more shy. Eye contact maybe is a little bit hard. So actually, they are non-verbal kind of gestures, right? Eye contact gestures. You see the way that I'm moving my hands right now. It is a sign of confidence and also a sign that you are used to speaking in public, right? Or to people in general. Of course, this can also be translated to language. So, how confidence is displayed in language is when you ask follow up questions. Okay, this shows that you are listening. Okay, you assert some opinions, right? This shows that you are thinking. Okay, so I know I'm making it very simple right now. Ask some questions, express your opinion. Okay, markers of a confident person. Second one on fluency is too long. I think the good amount of time to think would be like 4 to 5 seconds. Okay, if you have to think. Of course, if you already thought of the answer, then you can answer immediately. At the same time, fillers. Okay, so fillers are yeah, so I'm doing those right now, right? Or having too much like. Okay, so try to avoid them if possible. But if you are not able to, see if you can control the pace of your pauses. So, for example, I haven't thought of what to say next yet, but I'm pausing as well as I'm keeping a kind of natural like pacing. I am still speaking. I sound fluent, although I may not be actually saying anything at all. Right? Okay, so then the last one is counter arguments. So this one is the trickiest. Okay, so counter arguments mean like uh, if you have a certain if you disagree with something. So let's say I am negotiating for a contract where yep, so I am negotiating for give me a second. I need to re-share this. Okay, right. So let's say I'm negotiating for a contract for let's say $4,000 for this project. Okay, my client says that they want 5,000. So this is a very simple like numbers, negotiating numbers. But even negotiating numbers can be complicated when it comes to language. So how do I offer my stance and how do I negotiate such that the offer goes well? Okay. Try not to say things. So right now I'm just saying things that you probably shouldn't do because this is just a more simplified answer. So avoid saying I want this. So the word want, right? and I, okay, makes it sound a bit childlike. Instead, what you can say is, would it be possible if we something, if we considered, and then you offer your suggestion. So notice that I am applying certain kinds of techniques that I talked about previously. Would it be possible if we considered? So instead of saying I am the person who wants this, okay? Make it seem like, oh, we are coming to a mutual decision. So this is like I want to come to a mutual decision. I want to say like, oh, we are on the same team. We are not fighting. So a negotiation is not a fight. It is a mutually beneficial agreement, and I want to make it such that it is comfortable for both of us. We're both happy with the result, and also we have taken into account both sides. So if you're able to convey it both through the content as well as your language, your confidence and fluency, I would say that would actually bring up the chances of a successful negotiation in this case. Right, so give me a second. All right. Thank you everyone for joining today's live stream. Right. So I am trying something new. I teach. Okay. Actually, I should actually show you my slide. Okay. All right. So over here, right, just a quick overview, a quick plug. The top already has my banner in terms of trials that I do for my classes, as well as the fact that I am already a full-time business English as well as everyday English tutor. Okay, so if you have any other questions, you can email me here, hello@samchengwork.com. And also here is my website, right, samchengwork.com. Okay, and if you found this interesting or you have any other topics that you want me to address, right, the key part of this Q&A is that it's meant to be interactive, so it's good if you're able to kind of like participate, if you're curious, right, anything that you want to ask about, this will be your chance. And of course, because I am doing it in this specific time period, if there's a better time zone that works for you, because I am not sure actually, like which is the best time zone. So I am still experimenting with that, and also I'm experimenting with the format of the questions, right? So I'm just here to kind of give you some perspective on like how I teach, as well as a more free format, such that any kinds of questions can be entertained here in this session, in this short session that we have. All right, and that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully in 2 weeks. And if not, you can subscribe and you can get a notification whenever I have a video or I have another live stream. All right, take care everyone, and I'll see you soon.